Hey guys, tonight we are traveling back to ancient Rome, but we're not going to a senator's villa or the emperor's palace. No, we're going somewhere much grittier. Somewhere the history books often glamorize but rarely get right. We're going to a gladiator school. You're about to become a novicius, a rookie gladiator. And I have to be honest, your chances of surviving the first day, let alone the first week. Oh, well, let's just say the smell alone might do you in. It's an experience that will strip away every heroic, chiseled image you've ever had of these legendary fighters. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's a small click for you, but it makes a world of difference for me. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The cart lurches to a final, jarring stop. For days, you've been shackled, jolted along dusty roads under a relentless sun, your mind a blur of confusion and fear. But this is it, the destination. The heavy wooden gate groans open, a monstrous mouth revealing a dark, sandy courtyard within. This is a ludus, a gladiator school. The name sounds almost playful, like a place of games. But the air that drifts out tells a different story. It carries a stench so potent, so complex in its foulness, that you physically recoil. It's a thick, oppressive wave of old sweat, stale urine, damp earth, and something metallic and faintly sweet, like old blood. You're shoved forward, your bare feet stumbling from the rough wooden planks of the cart onto coarse, packed dirt. The gate slams shut behind you with a deafening thud that echoes in your bones. The sudden loss of sunlight is disorienting. Your eyes struggle to adjust to the gloom of the high-walled enclosure. Around you, shapes of men move in the shadows, massive, scarred figures, their bodies glistening with sweat and grime as they practice with wooden swords. The sounds are a cacophony, the rhythmic thwack of wood on wood, guttural grunts of exertion, the clanking of chains, and a low, constant hum of flies. This is not the arena. This is not the roar of the crowd you might have imagined. This is the factory floor where Rome's living weapons are forged, and the raw materials are men like you. A burly, pockmarked man with a ledger and a stylus, the Lonister's right-hand man yanks you by the arm. He doesn't ask for your name. Your name died the moment you were sentenced, captured, or perhaps, in a fit of desperation, volunteered for this life. Historians, by the way, still fiercely debate the motivations of the octroi, the free men who signed on to be gladiators. Was it for glory, or crushing debt, or a kind of death wish for you? Right now, the reason doesn't matter. The result is the same. You are property now, a commodity. The man shoves you toward a stone trough filled with murky, cold water. He gestures for you to strip. There is no privacy here. Your worn tunic, the last remnant of your former life, is torn from your body and tossed aside. You're forced to wash, but the water feels slimy, and the lye soap is harsh, stripping your skin but doing little to combat the filth that seems to permeate the very air. You're just one of several new arrivals, all being processed with the same detached, brutal efficiency. You are cattle being prepped for the pen. The man circles you, prodding your muscles, checking your teeth as if you were a horse. He mutters something to his assistant, who makes a note in the wax tablet. You're being assessed, categorized. Will you be a heavily armored Seikut or a nimble retiarius with a net and trident? Your body type will decide your fate, your fighting style, and your odds of survival. But that is a concern for later. For now, a more immediate reality is setting in, carried on that inescapable smell. It's the smell of confinement, of too many unwashed bodies packed into too small space. It's the smell of desperation and disease. Any romantic notion you might have harbored about a warrior's life, a hero's path, evaporates in this foul, suffocating atmosphere. This is no place for heroes. This is a place to die. either quickly on the sounds of the arena or slowly within these suffocating walls. And as you stand there, naked, cold, and dehumanized, you realize the dream is over. The stinking, shadowy courtyard is your new reality. The assessment is over. The man with a ledger gives you a final, dismissive shove toward a low, dark archway you hadn't noticed before. This is the entrance to the living quarters. The air that flows out from it is even more foul, now thickened with the smell of unwashed human bodies and damp, stagnant air. A guard, carrying a single flickering torch, motions for you to follow. You step out of the relative openness of the courtyard and into a narrow, stone corridor. The sudden drop in temperature is immediate, a damp chill that clings to your still wet skin. The torch throws huge, monstrous shadows that dance and drift on the rough-hewn walls. Your world has shrunk to this moving circle of light in a sea of oppressive darkness. The corridor is lined with heavy wooden doors, each with a small, barred grate set at eye level. From behind them, you hear noises: a hacking cough, a muttered curse, the rhythmic clink of a chain. This is a cell block, no different from a prison. The guard stops at one of the doors, lifts a heavy iron bar, and pulls it open with a groan of protesting wooden-rusted metal. He gestures for you to enter. You hesitate for a fraction of a second, but the sharp prod of his wooden staff in your back convinces you. You stumble inside. The door slams shut behind you, and the world is plunged into near-total blackness. The heavy bar clangs back into place. That sound, you realize, will become the punctuation mark of your days and nights, as your eyes slowly, painfully adjust. The dim light filtering through the tiny grate in the door and a high, slit-like window near the ceiling begins to reveal the shape of your new home. It's a cell, perhaps 10 feet by 12. The floor is packed earth, uneven and cold under your bare feet. The walls are damp, sweating stone, covered in a sleek film of what you can only assume is grime and mold. There are no beds. In their place are low, wooden platforms built against the walls, just wide enough for a man to lie down. On one, a figure is already curled up, a lump in the shadows. On another, a man sits with his back against the wall, silently polishing a piece of leather. There are 4 platforms. You are the third occupant. One space remains empty. No one speaks. The silence is heavier than the darkness. You stand awkwardly in the middle of the small space, unsure of what to do. The sitting man, his face a roadmap of old scars, looks up at you. His gaze isn't hostile. Not exactly. It's utterly devoid of emotion. The look of a man who has seen countless new faces arrive and, presumably, disappear. He gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod toward the empty platform farthest from the door. You take the hint. That is your place. The lowest rung on the ladder. The newcomer's spot. You sit down on the rough, splintery wood. A single, coarse blanket is folded at one end. It smells faintly of mildew and someone else's sweat. This is it. This is your entire world now. This tiny, dark, foul-smelling box, a fundamental piece of gladiator life that is often lost in the heroic mosaics, is the sheer, unrelenting squalor. While some high-status, champion gladiators might have earned slightly better quarters, for a novice like you, this was the reality. Archaeological evidence from the ludus at Carnuntum in Austria shows these incredibly small cells, confirming that multiple men were crammed into spaces that would be considered inhumane today. You watch the man sitting across from you. He never stops his methodical work. You notice something on the stone wall behind him. Carvings, dozens of small, vertical lines scratched into the stone, arranged in groups of 5. Victor remarks. A cold dread settles in your stomach. How many men had this one outlasted the era stick with unspoken rules and a clear hierarchy? It's a detail that sparks a lot of academic debate. Was the social structure inside a ludus purely a brutal free-for-all? Or did it evolve into a complex society with its own codes and loyalties? Some historians argue that gladiators formed brotherhoods, or collegiae, not unlike unions, to ensure proper burials and support for their families. Others maintain that in a place where your messmate could be your opponent in the arena tomorrow. True camaraderie was a fatal luxury. Looking at the silent, scarred man across from you, you suspect the truth is somewhere grimly in the middle. A small scratching sound from a dark corner makes you flinch. You are not alone. You have roommates you haven't been introduced to yet. The rustle of unseen things in the dark will be the soundtrack to your sleep. You pull the scratchy blanket around your shoulders, not for warmth, but as a flimsy shield against the oppressive atmosphere of the cell. You are a long way from the sunlit arenas and the roaring crowds. You are in the belly of the beast, in a dark, damp stone box with the silent killer and the ghosts of those who came before. And as you listen to the distant sounds of the training yard fade with the dying light, you realize this cell will be the stage for a different kind of survival. A restless night passes in a blur of unfamiliar sounds and the oppressive weight of the darkness. You're jolted awake not by the sun, for no sunlight truly reaches this place, but by the harsh clang of the iron bar being lifted from your cell door. The guard's silhouette fills the doorway, his torch casting long, dancing shadows. "Bird," he barks, a single word that tolerates no argument. You and your two silent cellmates shuffle out into the narrow corridor, joining a line of other men emerging from their own cells. The procession is slow, silent, and somber, a river of tired, scarred bodies flowing through the stone veins of the ludus. You're led not to the training yard, but to a different, more open area at the back of the compound. And it's here that the smell, which has been a constant, oppressive background noise, intensifies to a level that is almost physically painful. It hits you like a wall. The source is a long, low stone structure with a deep trench running its length. This is the communal latrine. The 4ICAI. You've seen public latrines before in whatever city you came from, but nothing like this. This is a place stripped of all pretense of civility. A stone bench with about 20 keyhole-shaped openings sits precariously over a deep channel of murky, slow-moving water. There are no dividends, no privacy, no dignity. Men are already seated, shoulder to shoulder, their morning ritual a public spectacle. The air hangs thick and heavy with a gag-inducing stench that clings to the back of your throat. This, you realize with a sinking horror, is the epicenter of the ludus' signature perfume. Your turn comes. You find an empty spot and sit, trying your best to breathe through your mouth, to ignore the man to your left and the man to your right. Below, in the channel, the waste of over 100 men slowly drifts by. This is the flushing system. A small, constant trickle of water, likely diverted from a local aqueduct or spring, is supposed to carry everything away, but the flow is sluggish, inadequate for the sheer volume of use. Piles of waste accumulate, festering in the glue. The ever-present flies buzz in thick, black clouds, moving from the trench to the men and back again. You notice there is no toilet paper. Of course not. Instead, in a bucket of murky water nearby, are several sticks with sponges tied to the end. This is the ex-Wallospommium, the communal tool for cleaning oneself. After use, each man simply rinses it, if you can call it that, in the same bucket of stagnant water and leaves it for the next person. The concept of germ theory is millennia away. To them, this is practical. To you, it's a horror show. The thought of using that shared, filth-encrusted sponge is almost more than you can bear. But the alternative isn't thinkable. The sponge is passed down the line. You use it as quickly as possible, trying not to think about the 20 men who used it before you this morning alone. This is a critical piece of the puzzle of gladiator life: the constant, unavoidable exposure to disease. Historians studying the sanitation of Rome often point to the grand aqueducts and public baths as signs of advanced hygiene. And they were, for the public, but within the walls of a place like a ludus, these systems broke down into their most crude and dangerous forms. The communal latrine was a paradise for bacteria, a superhighway for dysentery, cholera, and typhoid. A simple intestinal bug that might be a nuisance for a well-fed citizen could be a death sentence here. There's a long-standing debate among scholars about just how aware Romans were of the connection between filth and disease. Some argue that they had an empirical understanding, even if they didn't know about microbes. They knew that swamps bred fevers and that bad water made you sick. They associated foul smells, or miasma, with illness. This is why wealthier Romans would burn incense and seek out fresh country air. Others argue this was more of a rudimentary, almost superstitious belief. They didn't understand the mechanism. Looking down at this disgusting, disease-ridden trench, you can see why the miasma theory made so much sense to them. The air itself feels sick. You finish and stand up, eager to get away, but the smell follows you. It's in your clothes, in your hair, on your skin. You realize it will never leave you. It's a constant reminder of where you are. As you walk back toward the main yard, you pass the water source for the latrine's channel. It's a small, open-air system, and you watch in dawning horror as another gladiator, not 20 feet upstream from where the water enters the latrine, dips his hands in to wash his face. It's all the same water. The water for cleaning, for flushing, and, you suspect with a cold knot in your stomach, for drinking. The image of the communal sponge, the sluggishly moving filth, and the shared water source is burned into your mind. The sword of an opponent in the arena is a clear, understandable threat. You can see it coming. But this is an invisible enemy, an enemy you have to face every single day, an enemy that hides in the water, in the air, and in the very stones of this place. You survived your first encounter with the 4ICIA, but you now understand that the most dangerous battle you fight will not be for the crowd's entertainment. It will be a silent, daily war against the filth. Back in the main training yard, the grim ritual of the morning continues. The air still carries the stench of the latrine, but here it's mixed with the metallic tang of sweat and the dust kicked up by dozens of bare feet. You're trying to shake the revolting image of the communal sponge from your mind when a sharp, stinging bite on your ankle brings a new, more intimate misery to your attention. You look down and see a flea, fat and black, leap from your skin into the dust. You scratch the spot, and another bite follows on your arm. Then you feel a persistent itching in your scalp. You have new companions, and they are not the humankind. You look around at the other men. They seem oblivious, but you start to notice the subtle signs. The almost unconscious scratch of a man's neck as he listens to an instructor. The quick, furtive rub of the forearm. The twitchy shuffle of feet. They are all infested. Lice, fleas, and bed bugs are as much a part of the ludus as the wooden swords in the training posts. They live in the straw-stuffed mattresses that you now realize must be teeming with them. They thrive in the coarse wool of your single blanket. They hide in the cracks of the wooden platforms in your cell. There is no escape. Your cell, you recall, was not empty. That scratching sound you heard in the corner wasn't just your imagination. As the day progresses, you see them ruts. Not small field mice, but bold, sewer-fattened rats that scurry along the base of the walls with an unnerving confidence. They are the true masters of this place, feasting on scraps of dropped food, nesting in the thatch of the roofs, and raising their families in the dark, forgotten corners of the compound. At night, you will hear them gnawing and rustling, sometimes so close to your head that you'll jerk awake. Heart pounding. This is the ecosystem of a ludus, a pyramid of life with you, the gladiator, somewhere in the middle. You provide the blood for the fleas, the warmth for the lice, and the discarded food for the rats. It's a disgusting, parasitic existence that grinds down your spirit as much as your body. The constant itching is a low-level torture, a perpetual distraction that makes focus difficult and sleep a tormented affair. You'll wake up with fresh bites, your skin a roadmap of red, irritated welt. Historically, this is one of the most underreported aspects of a gladiator's life. We see the statues, the mosaics, the gleaming armor. We don't see the vermin, But they were there. Excavations of Roman settlements, including military barracks which shared similar living conditions, consistently unearth evidence of these pests. Specialized fine-toothed combs, made of bone or wood, are common finds, testament to a constant, losing battle against lice. These aren't just a nuisance, they are vectors for disease. Fleas, especially from rats, are notorious carriers of plague, while lice can transmit typhus. In the cramped, unsanitary conditions of the ludus, an outbreak could spread like wildfire, far more deadly than any contest in the Colosseum. A fascinating, and rather disgusting, little tidbit from Roman life is their approach to pest control. While they lacked chemical pesticides, they weren't entirely helpless. The writer Pliny the Elder suggested a variety of remedies to get rid of fleas. He recommended sprinkling your floor with the dust in which a mule had rolled for bed bugs. A popular folk remedy was to hang the foot of a hare at the head of your bed. How effective were these? It's highly doubtful. Historians are still debating whether these remedies were based on any kind of observation, or were pure folklore and superstition. Given the infestations you're currently experiencing, you'd be willing to try hanging a whole rabbit from the ceiling if you thought it would help. An older, heavily scarred gladiator next to you seems to notice your constant scratching. He smirks, a grim, humorless expression. He leans in, his voice a low growl. They are your first trainers. He mutters, they teach you to ignore the little pains. If you let a flea break your focus, a sword will finish the job. It's a piece of brutal, practical wisdom. The vermin are a part of the hardening process, another layer of misery to be endured and overcome. You must learn to live with the constant itching, the crawling sensations on your skin, just as you must learn to live with the fear, the hunger, and the filth. As the sun, a distant, golden orb above the high walls, begins to set, you are herded back to your cell. The door slams shut, the bar falls, and you are once again in the near darkness. You lie down on your platform, pulling the scratchy, foul-smelling blanket over you, but you can't relax. Every rustle of the straw, every faint scratching from the corner, every tiny itch on your skin is now magnified in the silence. You are not just sharing this small stone box with two other men. You are sharing it with a thriving, unseen, and ravenous population. Your new roommates have settled in for the night, and they are hungry. Sleep will not be a peaceful escape, but another battle in a long and declared war. The bell rings again, signaling the end of the midday break. Your belly is a tight, uncomfortable knot of half-digested barley. The lethargy you feel is immense, a stark contrast to the sharp, violent energy required for the afternoon's training. But there is no time for digestion, no moment of rest. You are herded out of the refectory and toward a corner of the yard you haven't yet visited. Here stands a large stone basin, filled to the brim with the same uninviting, murky water you've come to expect. This is the bath. Your morning ritual, as it were, is about to begin. New recruits are shoved toward the basin. The water is shockingly cold, and it carries the same faint, sour smell of a latrine cistern. A film of grime and what looks suspiciously like scum from the lye soap floats on the surface. There is no concept of refreshing or cleaning the water between uses. The first man in gets the cleanest water, and it only gets worse from there. By the time it's your turn, the water is a cloudy, grey soup of dirt, sweat, and who knows what else, shed from the bodies of the 20 men who went before you. An assistant hands you a chunk of harsh, abrasive soap. It's a coarse, greasy block made from animal fat and the lye soap. It does little to lather and feels like you're scrubbing your skin with sand and grease. You splash the frigid water on yourself. The cold a brutal shock to your system. You try to wash, but it feels like you're just moving the dirt around, trading your own sweat and grime for a cocktail of everyone else's. The entire process is hurried, functional, and deeply unpleasant. It is not about hygiene, it is a perfunctory ritual, another step in the day's routine. This stands in stark contrast to the popular image of Roman bathing culture. The great public baths, or thermae, were magnificent complexes of social life, business, and relaxation for the citizens of Rome. They featured pools at varying temperatures, the frigidarium cold, tepidarium warm, and caldarium hot, as well as steam rooms, libraries, and gardens. For a citizen, bathing was a luxurious, a slumber affair. But for you, a gladiator, it is this: a quick, cold, dirty rinse in a shared stone trough. You are denied even the most basic comforts of the civilization you are forced to entertain. As you stand there, shivering and still feeling unclean, you notice one of the veteran gladiators. He hasn't joined the rush to the basin. Instead, he is rubbing olive oil all over his body, a common practice before exercise in the Greco-Roman world. But what he does next is what truly catches your eye. He begins his own training regimen, his body quickly covered in a thick layer of dust from the yard and glistening with sweat. His skin, already oily, becomes a sticky canvas for the filth of the training ground. He seems to be deliberately cultivating a thick layer of grime. This practice ties into a strange and little-known aspect of Roman hygiene, or lack thereof. While the elite prized cleanliness, there was a peculiar counterculture, particularly among some philosophers and athletes, that viewed excessive bathing as a sign of softness and effeminacy. The cynic philosopher Diogenes, for example, was famous for his deliberate squalor. For a gladiator, perhaps this avoidance of washing was also a psychological tool, a way of embracing the gritty, brutal reality of their existence. Why wash when you will be covered in dirt and sweat again in 5 minutes? The question of how often gladiators actually bathed is a point of academic curiosity. Did they have access to the ludus bath daily, or was it a less frequent, perhaps weekly, ritual? Some evidence suggests that access to amenities like bathing depended heavily on a specific ludus and the status of the gladiator. A champion, a star of the arena, might have earned the privilege of a cleaner, hotter bath, but for a novice like you, the dregs of the bowl were all you could expect. The historical sources are frustratingly silent on these mundane details of daily life, forcing historians to piece together the truth from archaeological clues and passing mentions in texts. You finish your bath and are given a simple loincloth, a subliga column, to wear for training. It's made of rough, unbleached linen. As you tie it on, you feel a profound sense of dehumanization. Stripped, branded by your diet, infested with vermin, and now washed in filth, you are being systematically broken down. Every action, every ritual, is designed to erase the person you were and to mold you into a fighting animal. The cold water on your skin is a constant reminder of your low status. You are not a citizen enjoying the luxuries of Rome. You are a tool, and tools are not meant to be comfortable. They are meant to be functional. And as you step back into the dusty yard, still damp and shivering, you understand that your function is simple: to bleed and, if necessary, to die for the amusement of those who get to enjoy hot baths. The morning's dirty ritual is complete, and the real work is about to begin. The afternoon training session is a descent into a world of controlled violence. You are handed a gladius, not a real one with a sharpened edge, but a rudis, a wooden practice sword that is deliberately heavier than its steel counterpart. The idea is to build your strength and stamina. If you can wield this clumsy club for hours, a real sword will feel as light as a feather. Your shield is also made of wood, a heavy, unwieldy plank that feels less like protection and more like an anchor dragging your arm down. Your instructor, a former gladiator named Crixus with a network of scars that makes his face look like a cracked piece of pottery, demonstrates a basic thrusting motion, no wide swings. He barks, his voice a gravelly roar. Swinging is for farmers with scythes. It leaves you open. You are not a farmer. You are a killer. Thrust, quick, efficient, to the gut, to the throat. He smacks the flat of his wooden sword against your shield to emphasize the point. The impact jarring your entire arm. For the next few hours, this is your world. The relentless, monotonous repetition of footwork and sword drills. Lunge, thrust, recover, lunge, thrust, recover. The sun beats down on the open yard, and the dust kicked up by dozens of shuffling feet creates a hazy, choking fog. Soon, sweat is pouring from every pore of your body. It stings your eyes, drips from the end of your nose, and soaks the linen of your loincloth. The dust clings to your damp skin, forming a gritty, brown paste. You feel the exertion in every fiber of your being. Your muscles, already aching from the morning, now burn with a fire that threatens to consume you. Your lungs heave, desperate for air that isn't thick with dust. This is the goal, to push you past the point of exhaustion, to break you down and rebuild you. The physical conditioning of a gladiator was extreme. They were some of the most formidable athletes in the ancient world. Their bodies honed for explosive power and incredible endurance. But, as you train, something else is happening. The olive oil from the morning, the sweat pouring from your body, and the thick dust of the yard are combining to create a unique, greasy coating all over your skin. It's a foul, sticky layer of grime. You can feel it, a second skin of filth, when you pause for a moment to catch your breath. The flies, your constant companions, land on you, drawn to the salt in your sweat and the organic richness of your personal sludge. This coating of sweat and dirt was an unavoidable byproduct of a gladiator's daily life, and it would become one of the most bizarre and disgusting commodities in the Roman world. You are, at this moment, unknowingly manufacturing a luxury product. While you are toiling in misery, someone is seeing a business opportunity. You are not just a fighter, you are a walking, sweating source of revenue, even before you step into the arena. A fascinating cold weather fact about sweat is that Roman physicians actually had different classifications for it. They believed sweat generated from vigorous exercise was different from sweat generated by a fever. For instance, they saw the gladiators' sweat, produced through extreme physical hardship, as being imbued with a kind of raw vitality, a potent life force. This wasn't just sweat, it was the essence of masculine power, courage, and violence, all buttoned up, or in your case, caked onto your skin. The historical debate here revolves around how formalized this collection process was. Was it an official part of the ludus business model, with the Lalis take claiming a cut, or was it more of an informal, opportunistic side hustle run by the bath attendants and other staff? Some sources suggest that the Lalis owned the gladiator's body in its entirety, meaning everything that came from that body, including sweat, grime, and even blood, was his property to sell. Others paint a picture of a more black market-style trade, happening in the shadowy corners of the ludus and the public baths. As the training winds down, your body feels like one giant, screaming ache. You are covered head to toe in this thick, vile patina of your own making. You long for that cold, dirty bath again, which only moments ago seemed so repulsive. At least it would wash this suffocating layer off. But you are not laid to the basin. Instead, you and the other exhausted men are lined up, your bodies glistening with this bizarre, oily filth under the fading light. A different kind of assistant approaches, one you haven't seen before. He isn't carrying a water bucket or a loaf of bread. He's carrying a set of small, curved metal tools and a collection of little clay pots. The harvest is about to begin. Your work for the day is not over yet. You have produced the raw material, and now it is time for it to be collected. The line of exhausted, filth-caked gladiators shuffles forward into a designated area of the yard, near the bathhouse but distinctly separate. An attendant, a weary man with nimble fingers and an air of detached professionalism, directs you to stand still. He holds up one of the tools you saw earlier. It's a stray gill. You might have seen wealthy citizens use one at the public baths. It's a curved, metallic scraper, usually made of bronze or iron, designed to remove oil, sweat, and dirt from the skin after exercise or before bathing. For a Roman citizen, using a strigil was a normal part of their hygiene routine. For you, it's about to become something very different. The attendant starts with the gladiator in front of you, a massive Thracian with muscles like boulders. He works with a practiced, methodical speed. He places the curved part of the strigil against the man's shoulder and scrapes downwards. A thick, greyish-brown curl of filth, oil, and sweat is lifted from the skin, like a wood shaving from a plane. The attendant carefully scrapes this disgusting ribbon of human detritus off the strigil and into a small tiritoc of oil. Scrape, connect. Scrape, connect. He moves over the man's entire body, chest, back, arms, legs, harvesting every last bit of grime. The Thracian stands impassively, having gone through this ritual countless times. Damn, it's your turn. The attendant doesn't even look you in the eye. You are not a person, you are a surface to be harvested. The cold metal of the strigil touches your skin. It's a strange, unpleasant sensation. It doesn't hurt, but it's abrasive, scraping away the top layer of everything that has accumulated on your body throughout the day. You watch in morbid fascination as a thick, dark arc of gunk is peeled off your own chest. It's a disgusting cocktail of your sweat, the olive oil you were given, the dust of the yard, and dead skin cells. It is, quite literally, the filth of your suffering. The attendant carefully deposits your personal sludge into the vial. He works his way across your torso, your back, your aching limbs. With each scrape, a patch of paler skin is revealed underneath, still dirty, but noticeably lighter than the surrounding grime. The process is intimate and yet completely impersonal. It's a violation of your personal space that is treated with the mundane practicality of shearing a sheep. This practice, known as collecting gladiators, is one of the most bizarre and stomach-turning realities of a gladiator's existence. The gladiators was the catch-all term for the gunk scraped off athletes' bodies, and the sweat of a famous gladiator was considered particularly potent and valuable. It was the ultimate celebrity souvenir of the ancient world. While you are a novice and your brand isn't established yet, you are still part of the system, your grime contributing to the general stock. Here's a weirdly specific detail about strigils: they came in different sizes and shapes. Some were simple and functional, like the one being used on you. Others, owned by the wealthy, could be incredibly ornate, made of silver and decorated with intricate designs. Archaeologists have found them in graves all over the Roman Empire, indicating they were a very personal item, often buried with their owner. It's a strange thought that while a rich senator was being buried with his beautiful, personalized strigil, you were being scraped with a communal, functional tool used to collect your filth for profit. The academic world still has questions about the logistics of this process. Was the gladiators from different gladiators mixed together into a generic gladiator sweat potion, or was the product of a famous champion, a veritable superstar of the sands, kept separate and sold at a premium? The Roman historian Pliny the Elder mentions the collection of athletes' sweat, confirming the practice. But the day-to-day business specifics are lost to history. It seems likely that, much like modern celebrity merchandise, the bigger the name, the higher the price. A vial of grime from the legendary Flame, who won his freedom for times and chose to remain a gladiator, would have been worth a fortune compared to the sludge from an unknown novice like you. The attendant finishes with you and moves on to the next man in line. You stand there, feeling raw and strangely violated. The air is slightly cooler on the scraped patches of your skin. You are left with a thin, greasy film of what the strigil couldn't remove. You look down at the little pot containing your contribution. It's a small amount, but combined with the scrapings from all the other men, it represents a profitable day's work for the lamist. Hey, you have been worked to the point of collapse, fed a diet designed for livestock, and now, you have been physically harvested. You are not just a fighter providing a service. You are a natural resource, and every part of you, down to the very dirt on your skin, is being commodified and sold. The humiliation of it is a fresh, sharp pain, different from the dull ache in your muscles. It's the pain of realizing you are worth more as a collection of disgusting byproducts than as a human being. After the scraping is done, your finally allowed your evening bath another choice. Freezing rinse in the communal basin. The water, now at its absolute foulest at the end of a long day, does little more than smear the remaining grime around. You dry yourself with a rough piece of linen and are herded back to the refectory for the evening meal. It's the same as lunch, a heavy, bland scoop of barley and bean mush. You eat it without thinking, your mind still reeling from the bizarre ritual of the stray gill. As you're finishing your meal, you notice a well-dressed man enter the hall. He's not a gladiator. His tunic is clean, his sandals are of fine leather, and he carries himself with an air of business. He approaches the laniste, who is observing the meal from a raised platform. They speak in low, hushed tones. The man gestures toward a cart waiting just outside, upon which are several wooden crates. The laniste nods, and a deal is struck. Money, in the form of clinking coins, exchanges hands. The well-dressed man then approaches the attendant who performed the scraping. The attendant hands over several of the small terracotta vials, now sealed with wax. The man inspects one, holding it up to the flickering torchlight as if it were fine wine. He seems satisfied. The vials are carefully packed into one of the crates, cushioned with straw. You watch this transaction with a dawning, horrified understanding. You have just witnessed the supply chain in action. The product you and the others unwilling manufactured this afternoon has just been sold. The filth from your body, scraped off by one man, is now being handed to another, to be taken away and sold for a profit that you will never see. This was the business side of the games. The laniste was not just a trainer, he was a ruthless entrepreneur running a complex and often brutal business. His assets were his gladiators. He profited when you won, renting you out to fight in the games. He profited from the sale of your sweat and grime. And, grimly, he likely profited even if you died, through funeral clubs or insurance schemes. Every aspect of your life was monetized. A little-known fact about the gladiator business is the sheer cost involved. A good laniste had to pay for food even if it was cheap barley, lodging, weapons, medical care such as it was, and the guards. To offset these costs, they had to be creative in generating revenue. Selling byproducts like gladiators was not just a weird side hustle, it was likely a necessary part of the economic model that kept the ludus financially afloat. It was a low overhead, high-margin product derived from an asset they already owned. You watch as the cart, laden with its strange cargo, is prepared for departure. It will trundle through the gates of the ludus and into the city of Rome, a place that now feels like another planet. Gladiator. In the world of clean houses and marble statues, this crate of filth will be delivered to a merchant or an apothecary. It will be processed, packaged, and put on a shelf, waiting for a customer. The level of vertical integration in this trade remains a subject of debate for historians. Did the laniste sell the raw material to a third-party merchant who then branded and sold it, or did some larger, more enterprising laniste have their own in-house brand? Controlling the product from creation to final sale, the latter would imply a sophisticated understanding of marketing. Creating a brand identity around a specific ludus or even a star gladiator. Imagine Flamme's Fury Face Cream or see Arixus's Courage Cologne. While it sounds absurd, in the Roman world's celebrity-obsessed culture, it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility. One of your silent cellmates, the one with the scarred face, notices you staring at the departing cart. He leans over, his voice a low whisper that barely travels across the bench. "Don't think about it," he says, not unkindly. "That's not you in those pots. That's just the dirt. They can have the dirt. What matters is what's left." He taps his chest. "As long as you own this, you're still a man." His words are meant to be comforting. A piece of stoic advice from a veteran who has made his peace with the indignities of this life. But as you watch the cart disappear into the night, you're not so sure. It feels like a part of you has been stolen and sold to the highest bidder. You are being consumed by this city. Piece by piece. Today, it was your sweat and dirt. Tomorrow, in the arena, it will be your blood and courage. The realization settles heavily in your bloated, barley-filled stomach. In Rome, even a man's filth has value. And that might be the most degrading truth of all. The days settle into a brutal, monotonous rhythm. Wake in the dark. Face the latrine. Endure the cold wash. Choke down the barley mush. Train until your body screams. Get scraped like an animal. Then collapse back into your cell. The world shrinks to the high walls of the ludus. But whispers and rumors from the outside world still manage to seep through the cracks, carried by guards, merchants, and new arrivals. And it's through these whispers that you begin to understand the final destination of the foul cargo you helped create. One evening, a girl, loosened up by a skin of cheap wine, is talking to one of the veteran gladiators near your cell. You press your ear to the cold stone, straining to listen. The guard is laughing, telling a story about a wealthy matron he saw in the market that day, arguing with a perfumer over the price of a small, ornate pot. She swore by it. The guard snickers, said nothing else made her skin so radiant. He lowers his voice conspiratorially. It was the new shipment from here, the good stuff, from the secutors. The truth, when it's laid bare, is more bizarre than you could have imagined. The glow ios, the disgusting sludge scraped from your body, is being marketed and sold as a luxury cosmetic, a face cream, an aphrodisiac, a potion of love. You try to picture it, a noble Roman woman, the senator's wife perhaps. In her clean, well-lit villa, she's preparing for a banquet. She dismisses her slaves and opens a small, beautifully crafted alabaster jar. Inside is a thick, greyish paste. It's the product of your sweat, your misery, the dust of the yard, and the dead cells of your skin, all mixed together, maybe with a little perfume to mask the worst of the smell. She dabs a small amount onto her fingers and applies it to her cheeks, her neck. She believes this vile concoction, born of violence and squalor, will make her more beautiful, more desirable. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. The very filth she would be horrified to touch, the grime she would order her slaves to scrub from her floors, becomes a precious commodity once it has passed over the body of a gladiator. It's a testament to the power of marketing and the bizarre nature of celebrity culture in Rome. The gladiator was a paradoxical figure and outcast. A slave, a man of violence living in squalor, but also a hypermasculine superstar. An object of public fascination and, it turns out, female desire. This use of gladiator sweat as a beauty product is attested to in ancient sources. Pliny the Elder, a man who seemed to document every strange fact of the Roman world, mentions it. The poet Ovid, in his Art of Love, mockingly advises women on various cosmetic concoctions, and while he doesn't name gladiator sweat specifically, it fits right into the world of bizarre ingredients Roman women used, which included everything from crocodile dung to goose fat. A little known tidbit is that some of these beauty creams were also believed to have medicinal properties, removing blemishes and smoothing wrinkles. So your sweat wasn't just for beauty, it was part of a proto-dermatological industry. Why was it considered an aphrodisiac? The logic, twisted as it may be, is rooted in Roman ideas about vitality. You, the gladiator, live on the edge of life and death. You embody raw, violent, masculine power. By applying your essence to her skin, a woman was believed to be absorbing some of that potency, that animal magnetism. It was a form of sympathetic magic. She was just wearing a face cream, she was wearing danger, courage, and fame. Historians still puzzle over the psychology of this. Was it a genuine belief in the substance's power? Or was it more like buying a modern celebrity's perfume away to feel closer to a figure of fame and fantasy? Was it a private, slightly shameful secret? or a practice openly discussed among high society women. The satirical writings of the time suggest that at least some Romans found it ridiculous. But the fact that it was a viable commercial product means that many others took it very seriously. It exposes a fascinating tension in Roman society, the simultaneous adoration and revulsion for the gladiators themselves. They were to be cheered in the arena but shunned on the street. Yet, their very essence was coveted and worn as a secret token of desire. Lying in your dark cell, the guard's laughter echoing in your memory, you feel a profound sense of detachment from the world outside. It's a world so decadent, so disconnected from reality, that it would pay a fortune for your filth while keeping you locked in it. The whole system is a monstrous, insane machine, and you're just a cog. You sweat, you bleed, you suffer, and somewhere, a woman you will never meet anoints herself with your pain, believing it to be a magic potion. The thought is so absurd it's almost funny, but no laughter comes. There is only the cold, hard reality of the stone floor beneath you and the knowledge that your humanity has been packaged, sold, and is now sitting on a wealthy woman's vanity table. The idea takes root in your mind and refuses to leave. It haunts you during the monotonous drills, during the discomfort of your meals, and in the long, dark hours in your cell. The image of the noble woman, the matrone. You start to construct a more detailed picture of her, the faceless consumer of your unwillingly produced goods. You imagine her name is Livia. She's married to a portly senator who cares more about his political ambitions and the quality of his wine than he does about her. Her days are a structured procession of refined, respectable boredom. She manages the household slaves, oversees the education of her children, and attends social functions where the conversation is as predictable as the food. Her life is a gilded cage, luxurious but passionless. Then, she hears the whispers from her more adventurous friends. Or perhaps her sly Greek slave tells her about a new, potent cosmetic available from a certain merchant near the Forum Boa Room. It's expensive, exclusive, and rumored to work wonders. It's called Des or Gladiator is gladiator's sweat. The name itself is a thrill, a delicious taboo. You picture her sending her most trusted slave, under the cover of dusk, to procure a small, discreetly wrapped pot, back in the privacy of her chambers. She opens it. You wonder what she smells. Does the perfumer mix it with lavender or rose oil to mask its origins, or is the faint, animalistic scent part of the appeal? You suspect the latter. It's the smell of authenticity, of something real and dangerous in her sanitized world. This fantasy becomes a strange coping mechanism, a way to project your own misery onto an imaginary figure. You picture Livia dabbing the grey paste onto her skin before meeting her lover, a young, handsome poet who finds her new radiance intoxicating. She attributes the success of her affair to you, to the nameless, faceless gladiator toiling in filth so she can feel alive. There is a bitter, ironic satisfaction in this imagined scene. You are a ghost in her life, an invisible force fueling her secret passions. This strange connection between the highest and lowest echelons of Roman society, the senator's wife and the condemned gladiator, is one of the most fascinating social dynamics of the era. The gladiator was the ultimate outsider, often a slave or a prisoner of war, legally considered infamous, a person of low repute, stripped of most civil rights. Yet, they were also massive celebrities, the sports heroes of their day. Mosaics celebrated their victories, graffiti on public walls declared their prowess, and children played with gladiator action figures made of clay. This hero worship could take on extreme forms. Some Roman women became what we might call groupies, nuns ludii, who would pay for the company of famous gladiators. The poet Juvenal wrote a scathing satire about a senator's wife, W, who ran off to Egypt with her favorite gladiator, abandoning her family-owned reputation for a man he described as scarred, with a battered helmet and a constant drip from his eye. He was horrified that she could prefer this broken-down fighter to her own comfortable life. A particularly strange and often debated piece of evidence is the discovery of cursed tablets. These were small sheets of lead, inscribed with curses against a rival, which were then folded up and hidden in a place believed to be close to the gods of the underworld, like a grave or a well. Some of these tablets invoke the names of gladiators who had died in the arena. The thinking was that these men, having died violently and prematurely, had a special connection to the spirit world, so a person might inscribe a curse like, "Just as the gladiator Urbanus was slain, so may my rival Marcus be struck down." It's a morbid thought your death in the arena could be weaponized by a stranger in their petty personal disputes. Your final moments of agony become a tool for someone else's vengeance. The historical debate around this phenomenon centers on its prevalence. Was the gladiator craze a widespread societal obsession, as the satirist like Juvenal would have us believe, or was it a more niche fascination, exaggerated by moralists to comment on the perceived decay of Roman values? It's hard to say for sure. The written sources we have are almost exclusively from the elite, male perspective, and they were often scandalized by the behavior of women who stepped outside their traditional roles. But for you, lying in the dark, the debate is academic. The reality is the quiet clink of coins you heard, the crate of vials being loaded onto the cart. Someone is buying what you are producing. Your Livia is out there, in some form. She is real. The thought doesn't make you angry anymore. It has moved past anger into a kind of profound, weary absurdity. You are linked by a chain of commerce and desire to a world you can never be a part of. You are the grotesque secret behind her beauty, the squalid reality that fuels her fantasy. The two of you, the gladiator and the matron, are partners in a bizarre, unspoken transaction, forever separated by status, but intimately connected by a small pot of filth. The logic behind the barley man diet, as explained by the one-eyed trainer, begins to manifest itself physically. Weeks of the high carb. No pleasure must have started to change your body. Beneath the grime and the developing muscles, you feel a new layer forming. It's a soft, yet firm, layer of fat covering your abdomen, your chest, and your back. You are getting heavier, more solid. You are, quite literally, being padded for impact. One afternoon, the Launiste himself gathers the novices. He is an imposing figure. A former gladiator who won his freedom and then bought the very school where he was once trained. He is proof that a way out exists, however unlikely. He decides it's time for a more formal lesson on the science of being a gladiator. "Look at you," he begins, his voice surprisingly calm and measured. He walks down the line, inspecting each of you. You are stronger. But strength is not enough. The crowd does not pay to see a quick, clean death. They pay for a show, a spectaculum. He pauses, letting the word hang in the air. A show needs drama. It needs blood. But it does not need your gut spilled on the sand in the first 30 seconds. He stops in front of a particularly lean and weary recruit, a young man who struggles to put on weight. He pokes the man's ribs. "This is no good," the Launiste says, not crudely, but with the frustration of a craftsman looking at flawed material. A blade finds a rib. It gets stuck, or it glances off. Not interesting. A blade slips between the ribs. It finds a lung. He dies. Just like that. He snaps his fingers. The show is over. The crowd is disappointed. I have lost an investment. Then, he moves to you. He taps your belly, where the layer of fat is now noticeable. "This," he says, with a hint of approval. "This is good. This is a canvas for the artist. The artist is your opponent. His sword is the brush." He turns to the group. "A shallow cut here." He gestures to your abdomen. "Looks devastating. There will be blood. A great deal of it. The crowd will guess. They will think you are finished. But the blade has only cut through your armor." He taps your belly again. "This barley fat. It protects the muscle. It protects the organs. It allows the show to continue. It allows you to continue." This grimly practical explanation is the core philosophy of a gladiator's physical conditioning. It wasn't about aesthetics, it was about survivability and entertainment value. This fat armor theory is supported by the bone analysis from the Ephesus gladiator cemetery. The high strontium levels in their bones, a marker for a heavily plant-based diet, confirms their carb-heavy regimen. This diet would have naturally led to higher body fat percentages, especially when compared to an animal protein. A funny, and perhaps apocryphal, story related to this comes from the famous physician Galen, who served for a time as a doctor to the gladiators at a ludus in Pergamon. He supposedly complained about how difficult it was to study anatomy on them because of the thick layer of fat he had to cut through. It was a testament to the effectiveness of their diet, even if it frustrated medical science. This concept of building a specific body type for a specific task is not unique to gladiators, but the Roman approach was particularly blunt. They were creating a spectacle, and the gladiator's body was a crucial part of the stage dressing. The ideal was not the chiseled, lean warrior we see in modern films, but a bulkier, more robust physique capable of absorbing punishment and prolonging the fight. Of course, the scientific accuracy of the Lonistes claims is debatable. Historians and medical experts still discuss the true protective qualities of such a fat layer. While it certainly could protect against superficial slashes, would it really stop a determined, well-aimed thrust? Probably not. Its real value might have been more psychological. For the gladiator, it was a tangible layer of defense, a comfort in a world of constant threat. For the crowd, it ensured a bloodier, more visually dramatic spectacle without necessarily ending the contest prematurely. It was a win-win for everyone except, perhaps, the gladiator's long-term health. As the Lomiste finishes his lecture, you look down at your own body with new eyes. It feels less like your own and more like a piece of equipment being customized for a purpose you never chose. You are being fattened like a prize hog, but not for slaughter, at least not immediately. You're being fattened for performance. The diet, the training, it's all part of a calculated science of violence. You are being engineered to bleed well, to suffer theatrically, and to die in the most entertaining way possible. The realization is profoundly chilling. Your body is no longer a private vessel for your own life, it is a public stage for a bloody drama. And the barley mush you eat every day is the price of admission. The high-carb diet has another, less strategic, and far more unpleasant side effect. The sheer volume of barley, beans, and other legumes wreaks havoc on your digestive system. The refectory, once a place of simple hunger and bland food, becomes a symphony of internal discomfort. The nights in your small, unventilated cell are even worse. Your stomach is in a constant state of turmoil. You feel bloated, heavy, and perpetually gassy. The thick, fiber-rich mush sits in your gut like a stone, digesting slowly and producing an incredible amount of intestinal gas. This isn't a minor inconvenience, it's a constant, pervasive source of misery for you and everyone around you. The air in your cell, already thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and damp stone, takes on a new, foul dimension. It becomes a shared space of flatulence. A small, stone box filled with the uncomfortable, unodorous byproducts of your specialized diet. There is no privacy in this. A pain groan from the man on the platform next to you in the middle of the night is a familiar sound. The foul smell that follows is equally familiar. There are no apologies, no acknowledgements. It is simply a fact of life in the ludus. Another layer of filth to be endured. The stoic, scarred veteran you share the cell with seems immune to it, or perhaps just so accustomed to it that it no longer registers. But for you, it's a constant, embarrassing, and deeply uncomfortable reminder of the low-quality fuel you're forced to run on. This unglamorous reality is, of course, rarely mentioned in the heroic tales. We don't have mosaics depicting a gassy gladiator, but it is an unavoidable biological consequence of the hordery diet. The complex carbohydrates in barley and beans are difficult for the human gut to break down, and the process of fermentation by gut bacteria produces large amounts of gas, primarily hydrogen, methane, and carbon dioxide, without the varied diet of a normal citizen, which would include more easily digestible foods, fruits, and olive oil to aid digestion. Your system is in a constant state of rebellion. Interestingly, the Romans were well aware of this particular issue with beans. The writer Pliny the Elder noted that beans were a windy food, and the poet Horace joked about them. There was even a belief that the soul could escape the body through excessive flatulence, which is a wonderfully bizarre way to think about it. For this reason, the flame Endiolus, the high priest of Jupiter, was forbidden from eating or even mentioning beans, as they were associated with death and decay. It's a bitter irony that the very food considered impure for a high priest was the daily sustenance for the gladiators, the men who lived closer to death than anyone. This brings up a point of contention among scholars: to what extent did the Romans understand nutrition and its effects beyond the obvious? They clearly knew certain foods caused certain effects, like gas or weight gain. The physician Galen wrote extensively about the humors of different foods: hot, cold, wet, dry, and how they affected the body's balance. He would have classified your barley diet as cold and wet, leading to a sluggish and phlegmatic temperament. Some historians argue this was a sophisticated, holistic system. Others see it as pre-scientific guesswork, where some observations were correct by coincidence, but the underlying theory was completely wrong. This humoral theory would dominate Western medicine for over 1,000 years, making Galen's work with gladiators incredibly influential. The physical discomfort affects your training. It's hard to maintain your balance and execute a swift lunge when your stomach is cramping. The constant bloating makes you feel slow and unwieldy, even as the trainers scream at you to be faster, lighter on your feet. It's a cruel paradox. The diet designed to make you resilient also makes you miserable and sluggish. One night, the discomfort in your gut is particularly bad. You lie on your wooden slab, curled up, listening to the cacophony of your own insides and the similar noises coming from your cellmates. You think about the rich Romans and their villas. You imagine the banquets they enjoy: roasted peacock, spiced fish, wine sweetened with honey, delicate cakes, food meant for pleasure, not just survival. The contrast is a form of torture. They get the flavor, the variety, the comfort. You get the body, the bloat, and the gas. You realize this is another, more subtle form of control. A man who is constantly uncomfortable, whose body is at war with itself, is a man less likely to have the energy or clarity of mind to rebel. Your physical misery keeps you grounded, focused only on the next moment of relief, the next meal, the next order. It saps your will. Spartacus, you think, must have been truly extraordinary to inspire a revolution out of men who were probably feeling as bloated and uncomfortable as you do right now. The thought is a small, dark speck of humor in a sea of discomfort, but it doesn't ease the cramping in your gut. It's just another long, dull, and restless night in the life of a body man. It was bound to happen. The training is relentless, a constant grind of muscle against wood, body against shield. The instructors push you harder each day, moving from basic drills to light, controlled sparring with other novices. It's during one of these sessions that you make a mistake. You overextend on a thrust, leaving your left side exposed for a split second. Your opponent, a nervous but quick young man, reacts instinctively. The edge of his heavy wooden shield smacks hard against your forearm. A sharp, searing pain shoots up your arm, and you cry out, dropping your practice sword with a clatter. The training stops. All eyes are on you. Your opponent looks horrified, as if HES just committed a terrible crime. The instructor, CRXus, strides over. He shoves the other novice aside and grabs your arm. There's a long, ragged gash on your forearm where the rough edge of the wooden shield scraped away the skin. It's not deep, but it's bleeding freely. The bright red blood, a shocking contrast against your grimy skin. It's your first real injury in the ludus. It's just a scratch. CRXus grunts. though his eyes are assessing the wound with a professional gaze. But a scratch can be a door for death to walk through. He hauls you to your feet. Come, to the medicus. You are half dragged, half led away from the training yard to another part of the compound you have not seen before. It's a small, windowless room, cleaner than your cell but still grim. This is the infirmary. The air here smells different again, a sharp, herbal scent mixed with the metallic tang of fresh blood and something else. Something acrid and smoky. A man is waiting. He is the medicus. The doctor. H.E.S. not a well-educated physician like Guylan, H.E.S. more of a battlefield medic. A man who has learned his trade through brutal, hands-on experience. He specializes in one thing, patching up broken gladiators. He gestures for you to sit on a stone slab. He examines your arm without a word, his touch surprisingly gentle. The wound itself is not the problem. It's a simple cut. The problem is what comes next. The problem is infection. In the pre-antibiotic world, any break in the skin was a potential death sentence. A simple cut could lead to cellulitis, sepsis, or gangrene. The medicus knows this. His job is not just to close the wound, but to prevent it from festering. This is where gladiator medicine, a field of both surprising sophistication and horrifying crudeness, comes into play. The doctors who tended to gladiators were some of the most experienced trauma specialists in the ancient world. They had to be. They saw a constant stream of wounds, cuts, punctures, broken bones, and torn muscles. They became experts in anatomy and wound management. The famous physician Galen, in fact, claimed that his time as a gladiator doctor was the most valuable part of his medical education, as it gave him a window into the body that he couldn't get from dissecting animals. The medicus finishes his examination and turns to a collection of jars and pouches on a wooden shelf. This is his pharmacy. What he chooses to treat you with will be a gamble. A roll of the dice with your life based on the medical knowledge of the day. You watch, your heart pounding, as he selects his tools. He is not reaching for clean bandages and antiseptic. He is reaching for something that looks disturbingly like a clump of dirt and a jar of honey. The debate over the effectiveness of Roman medicine is fierce. On one hand, they performed complex surgeries, including amputations and possibly even brain surgery. They developed sophisticated surgical tools, many of which are remarkably similar to those used today. They understood the importance of diet and exercise. On the other hand, their understanding of infection was non-existent. They believed disease was caused by an imbalance of the four humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, or by miasma, bad air. This led to treatments that ranged from the useless to the downright dangerous. As the medicus approaches you with his chosen remedies, you are about to experience this contradiction firsthand. You have been granted access to some of the best trauma care the Roman world has to offer. But the best in this era is a terrifying prospect. The wound on your arm is small, but it has opened a door. And you are about to find out what strange, and potentially deadly, things the doctor will use to try and close it. You brace yourself. The stinging pain in your arm momentarily forgotten, replaced by a cold dread of the cure. The medicus returns, his hands holding not clean linen and sterilizing wine, but a bizarre assortment of materials that make your stomach churn. In one hand, he holds a small wooden bowl containing a sticky, dark substance. In the other, he has a wad of what looks like old, dusty cobwebs. He sets them down beside you on the stone slab. This is your treatment. He first takes the cobwebs. With surprising dexterity, he gently but firmly packs them directly into your bleeding wound. The pressure is uncomfortable, and the idea of having spider-bears inside your arm is deeply unsettling. For the blood, he mutters, more to himself than to you. He is using the cobwebs as a styptic, a substance to stop the bleeding. This was a common folk remedy for centuries. Unsurprisingly, it has a sliver of scientific basis. Cobwebs are rich in vitamin K, which aids in blood clotting, and their fine fibers can create a physical mesh to help seal a wound. However, They are also incredibly dirty, filled with dust, insect parts, and whatever bacteria and fungal spores were floating around the filthy corners of the ludus. You have just swapped the risk of bleeding for the near certainty of contamination. Next, he turns to the bowl. He dips his fingers into the sticky paste and smears it over the top of the cobweb-packed gash. The smell hits you, it's earthy and foul. You recognize the scent. It's cannibal dung. Likely from a horse or a cow, mixed with honey and perhaps some herbs. This concoction is the antibiotic of the day. The doctor is creating a poultice, a soft, moist mass applied to the body to relieve soreness and inflammation. The use of animal dung in medicine is one of the most stomach-turning aspects of ancient healing practices. It was used in various cultures, including ancient Egypt and Rome. The logic, as far as we can reconstruct it, was likely based on the idea of sympathetic magic or observation. Perhaps they noticed that certain wounds treated this way didn't fester as quickly, without understanding why. Ironically, modern science has shown that some types of animal dung can contain microorganisms that produce antibiotic substances. It was a complete shot in the dark, a game of biological roulette. Sometimes it might have worked, introducing a friendly microbe that fought off more dangerous pathogens. Other times, it would introduce deadly bacteria like Clostridium tetani, the cause of tetanus. The honey, at least, was a genuinely effective part of the treatment. Romans knew that honey helped keep wounds clean and promoted healing. We now know that honey has natural antibacterial properties. It's hygrospocaceal, meaning it draws moisture out of the wound, dehydrating and killing bacteria. It's also acidic and contains small amounts of hydrogen peroxide. So amidst the filth of the cobwebs and the dung, there is one ingredient that is actively helping you. The doctor finishes his work by wrapping your arm in a strip of rough, unbleached linen. The bandage is not clean. It's likely been used before, washed, and reused. Leave it for 2 days, he instructs. Don't get it wet. The Laniste will not be happy if he loses a man to a scratch. He gives you a final pat on the shoulder, a gesture that is meant to be reassuring but feels more like a dismissal. The debate among medical historians about these practices is fascinating. Were doctors like Galen, who advocated for cleaner methods like using wine to wash wounds, the exception rather than the rule, or were practices like using dung and cobwebs more common in rural areas or in places like a ludus, where resources were scarce and traditional folk medicine held sway? The evidence is mixed. Medical texts from the period often describe a wide range of treatments, from the surprisingly modern to the utterly bizarre. It suggests that there was no single Roman medicine, but rather a spectrum of practices, with a highly educated physician in the city on one end, and a pragmatic, tradition-bound medicus and a gladiator school on the other. You walk out of the infirmary, your arm throbbing with a dull, heavy ache. The bandage feels tight and unclean. You can still smell the faint, foul odor of the poultice. You are now a walking experiment. The next 48 hours will determine the outcome. Will the honey's antibacterial properties win out, or will the bacteria from the cobwebs and the dung find a new home in your flesh? You have survived your first injury, but you have just begun your first battle with the real killer in the ludus infection. The fear you feel is colder and deeper than any fear you felt in the training yard. An opponent's sword is an honest threat. This is a silent, invisible enemy that you have just willingly invited into your own body. The next 2 days are a special kind of hell. You are excused from training with your arm, but you are not allowed to rest. You are put on menial duty, mucking out the area near the latrine, turning the heavy millstone to grind the barley, tasks that can be done with one good arm. Every moment is a torment of anxiety. Your bandaged forearm begins to feel warm, then hot. A dull throb evolves into a sharp, persistent, pounding pain that seems to sync with your own heartbeat. You try to ignore it, telling yourself it's just the process of healing. But you know it isn't. You've seen this before, in your life before the ludus. You've seen it in soldiers, in farmhands who'd had an accident with a tool, It's the unmistakable sign of a wound gone bad. On the second night, you can't sleep. The pain is a fiery serpent coiled around your arm. You feel a deep, penetrating chill, even though the cell is stuffy and warm. Your teeth begin to chatter. This is the fever setting in. Your body is trying to fight the invasion, but it's a war being fought deep within your own tissues, and you are the battlefield. In the dim light from the grate, you look at your cellmates. The scarred veteran is watching you, his expression unreadable in the dark. He has seen this 100 times. He knows the signs. He says nothing. There is nothing to say. By the morning of the third day, you are delirious. The pain is excruciating. The bandage is stained with a yellowish, foul-smelling discharge. Your arm, from the wrist to the elbow, is swollen, red, and hot to the touch. The skin is stretched taut and shiny. When the guard opens the cell, you can barely stand. The veteran says a single word to him, medicus. You are taken back to the infirmary. The journey across the yard feels like a mile-long trek through a nightmare. The sounds of the ludus are muffled and distant. Your world has shrunk to the blinding pain in your arm and the fever raging in your head. The doctor takes one look at you and his face hardens. There is no gentle touch this time. He rips the soiled bandage off. The stench that erupts from the wound is nauseating, a smell of decay and sickness. The gash is now an angry, weeping crater. Its edges purple and black. The infection is not just in the wound, it's spreading. Red streaks are beginning to travel up your arm from the wound site. A visible map of the poisons advance through your lymphatic system. This is lymphanitis, a sign of a severe, life-threatening infection. The rot has set in. The medicus says, his voice grim. He knows he has limited options. The poultice has failed. The gamble was lost. Now he has to resort to more drastic measures. He can try to cut the dead tissue away, a procedure called debridement, or he can try the last, most terrifying tool in his arsenal. This moment is the brutal reality of gladiator mortality, while the images of two men fighting to the death in the arena. Historical analysis suggests this was not always the case. Gladiators were expensive assets. Day didn't want to lose them. Many fights were not to the death, and the loser was often spared. The real, inexorable killer was infection. A study of the gladiator cemetery at Ephesus revealed that while many skeletons showed healed weapon injuries, a significant number showed no signs of fatal trauma. This leads many archaeologists and historians to believe that these men survived the arena only to die later from infected wounds. They won the battle but lost the war against microbes. This is a point of ongoing scholarly discussion. What was the true mortality rate in the arena versus the ludus? Some scholars, analyzing the number of fights some famous gladiators survived, argue that the death rate per fight was relatively low, perhaps around 10%. Others argue it was much higher, closer to 50% in certain periods, especially in matches involving criminals sentenced to death. But almost all agree that for every gladiator who fell on the sand, another likely died slowly, undiagonizingly in a room just like this one, from a wound that should have been survivable. The medicus looks from your arm to a small charcoal brazier glowing in the corner of the room. In it, an iron rod rests, its tip glowing and menacing. Bright orange, he has made his decision. He is not going to try to cut the rot out. He is going to burn it out. Cauterization. The thought sends a new wave of icy terror through your fever-ridden body. The pain from the infection is immense, but the thought of that glowing metal against your living flesh is a horror beyond comprehension. You have come face to face with an enemy far more terrifying than any man with a sword. It is the doctor, and he is coming to save your life with fire. There is no preparation, no anesthetic. The very concept is a distant dream. The medicus scores into large guards from the yard. They are your restraints. Each one grabs a shoulder, their hands like iron vises, forcing you down onto the stone slab. You struggle, a primal instinct to flee kicking in. But it's useless. They are immensely strong. and your fever has left you weak and disoriented. You can do nothing but lie there, pinned, your infected arm held out. The medicus walks to the brazier. He uses a pair of long iron tongs to lift the cauterizing iron. The tip glows with an almost liquid heat, a malevolent orange eye in the gloom of the infirmary. The air around it shimmers. He walks towards you. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. You squeeze your eyes shut, but you can't block out the sound of low, angry hiss as the superheated metal moves through the air. And then comes the pain. It is a universe of pure, white-hot agony. It is beyond anything you have ever imagined. It is not a cut, or a break, or a burn from a stray ember. It is the sun touching your skin. The smell of your own flesh searing is immediate and sickening. It's a smell of cooking meat, a smell that will be burned into your memory forever. You scream, "Uro!" inhuman sound torn from the depths of your soul. The guards press down harder, their knuckles white, their faces grim. They are used to this. It's part of the job. The medicus holds the iron against the wound for what feels like an eternity, moving it methodically. He is burning away the infected, dying tissue, sealing the blood vessels, and creating a sterile barrier of charred flesh. In his mind, he is fighting the rot with fire, the ultimate purifier. Cauterization was a brutal but often effective last resort in ancient medicine. It was used to stop severe bleeding, to treat ulcers and tumors, and, as in your case, to prevent the spread of gangrene. The Roman medical writer Celsus described the procedure in detail, advocating it as a treatment of last resort when all else had failed. The evil, he wrote, must be burnt away. It was a desperate measure for a desperate situation. Without it, the infection would almost certainly spread, leading to sepsis and slow, painful death. With it, you have a chance if you can survive the shock and the pain, and if the burn itself doesn't become a new site for infection. A strange historical tidbit is that different types of cauterizing irons were used for different procedures. There were fine-pointed irons for delicate work, flared, spade-like irons for larger surface areas, and even hollow tubes for treating internal issues like hemorrhoids. The medicus treating you would have had a set of these specialized tools, each designed for a specific kind of medical violence. Finally, after a lifetime of agony compressed into 30 seconds, the medicus pulls the iron away. The hissing stops. The searing pain begins to subside into a deep, immense, throbbing ache. The room is filled with the acrid smoke of your own burnt flesh. You lie panting on the slab, drenched in sweat, every muscle in your body trembling from the shock. The guards release you. You are too weak to move. The medicus inspects his work. Your wound is no longer a weeping, infected crater. It is a blackened, cauterized horror, a brand of survival seared into your arm. He applies a simple dressing, this time perhaps using linen soaked in wine, its alcohol acting as a mild antiseptic. The debate over whether Roman doctors understood the antiseptic properties of alcohol versus its humoral properties, wine being hot and dry, counteracting a wet infection, is ongoing. To you, the distinction is meaningless. All you know is the cool liquid is a momentary relief on your scorched skin. The fire has cleansed it, the medicus says, his voice flat. Now you rest. Either the fever will break, or it will bite you. You are carried back to your cell and laid on the wooden platform. You are no longer useful for even the most menial tasks. You are now just a body, fighting a war within itself. As you drift in and out of a feverish, pain-filled consciousness, you look at the black, charred mark on your own. It is a brutal testament to the medicine of your time. They could not kill the invisible enemies inside you, so they burned a part of you away to save the rest. It is a scar you will carry forever, a permanent reminder of the day you were saved by fire and agony. It is the price of survival in the ludus. For days, you lie on the edge of life and death. The fever is a relentless tide, pulling you under into a swirling sea of nightmares, and then, receding just enough to let you gasp for air in the waking world. Your cellmates leave you be. Food and water are brought, but you have no appetite. Your entire existence is focused on the searing, throbbing pain in your arm and the furnace in your head. During these long hours, your mind drifts to another fear, a fear whispered among the gladiators in hushed, terrified tones. Tetanus. You saw him and I from it a few weeks ago. He was a veteran, a tough Gallic warrior who had survived a dozen fights. He suffered a deep puncture wound to his leg from a practiced trident. At first, it seemed to be healing. Then, the stiffness began. It started in his jaw, a strange inability to open his mouth properly. The men called it lockerhood. Then it spread to his neck, his back. Within a day, his entire body was rigid, his back arching in a grotesque, unnatural bow from the sheer force of the muscle spasms. His face was frozen in a horrifying erectus grin. The risus sardomicus. He was fully conscious, his eyes wide with terror, trapped inside a body that was torturing itself to death. There was nothing the medicus could do but watch. He died, not from the wound, but from suffocation, his respiratory muscles seizing up. The memory of his death is a constant, terrifying companion to your fever. Every time a muscle in your neck feels stiff, every time your jaw aches, a wave of panic washes over you. Tetanus, caused by the bacterium Clostridium tetani, thrives in environments just like the ludus. The bacteria spores are commonly found in soil, dust, and animal feces, precisely the ingredients of the poultice that was packed into your wound. A deep puncture wound, like the one the Gauls suffered, or a dirty, contaminated gash like yours, creates the perfect anaerobic oxygen-free environment for the spores to germinate and release their deadly neurotoxin. The Romans didn't understand the microbiology, but they knew the disease. They called it tetanus, from the Greek word for tort. The physician Celsus described its horrifying symptoms with chilling accuracy. They knew it was often associated with wounds, but they had no idea what truly caused it or how to treat it. Their only recourse was to try to soothe the symptoms with warm compresses and liquid foods. But the outcome was almost always fatal. This specter of tetanus highlights the grim reality of ancient medicine. While a practitioner like the medicus could perform a brutal but effective procedure like cauterization to combat a visible infection, they were utterly helpless against the invisible world of microbes and their toxins. A gladiator had a better chance of surviving a sword to the chest than a microscopic bacterium entering his bloodstream. A fascinating and macabre detail about Roman beliefs is that they often attributed such inexplicable and horrifying diseases to supernatural causes, the wrath of a god, or a curse from an enemy. Aim and eyeing in such a contorted, unnatural way must surely be the victim of dark magic. This is why curse tablets were so popular. People genuinely believed in their power to inflict such suffering. It's possible that your fellow gladiators, seeing the Gauls' agonizing death, didn't just see a medical tragedy, they saw a divine or magical punishment, which only added another layer of fear to their already precarious existence. The debate among historians here is how much of Roman medical practice was empirical versus how much was rooted in magic and superstition. It's clear the lines were incredibly blurry. A doctor might prescribe a rational treatment like willow bark source of aspirin for a fever, while in the next breath advising the patient to wear an amulet to ward off evil spirits. For the Romans, it wasn't a contradiction. You fought the battle on all fronts, the physical and the spiritual. The medicus burned your arm to fight the physical rot. Someone else might have whispered an incantation over you to fight the spiritual one. But slowly, miraculously, your fever begins to break. One morning, you wake up and the sheets are soaked, but the fire in your head has cooled to embers. The pounding in your arm has subsided to a dull, manageable ache. You are weak, emaciated, but you are alive. You have survived the wound, the infection, the cure, and the fear. You have stared into the abyss of tetanus and gangrene and stepped back from the edge. The scarred veteran in your cell looks at you, a flicker of something new in his eyes. It might be respect. You didn't just survive an injury. You survived the medicus. You have a new scar, a horrifying brand of blackened flesh on your forearm. It is ugly, but it is a badge of honor in this place. It marks you as a survivor, a man who has been to the brink and returned. In the brutal world of the ludus, that gives you a new kind of status, a status paid for in agony and fear. Your recovery is slow. The burn on your arm eventually scabs over, leaving a tight, puckered scar of shiny, discolored flesh that serves as a permanent, ugly reminder of your ordeal. You are put back on light duties, and gradually, you begin to regain your strength. The experience has changed you. You are more cautious, more aware. Your gaze now lingers on the small details of the ludus you previously overlooked, the seemingly insignificant things that could be a source of life or death, and your attention falls, obsessively, on the water. It's the lifeblood of the compound, and you now see it as a river of potential death. There is the main cistern in the corner of the yard. It's a large, open-air stone basin where rainwater and perhaps water diverted from a nearby stream collects. The water is covered in a green film of algae, and you regularly see insects and sometimes even a dead rat floating on the surface. Yet this is the clean water. This is the water used for drinking and for the refectory's cooking cauldrons. A small channel, little more than a stone gutter, runs from this main cistern. Its first stop is the washing basin, where dozens of filthy men perform their morning ablutions, the cold water turning into a grey soup of sweat and grime. From there, the same water continues its journey. It's the water you drink after a grueling training session, scooped directly from the cistern into a communal wooden bucket. It's the water used to boil the barley, your daily sustenance. And finally, its journey ends at the back of the compound, where it provides the sluggish, pathetic flush for the communal latrine, carrying away the waste of 100 men. It's all the same water, the drinking, the washing, the cooking, and the flushing all connected in one continuous, contaminated loop. This realization is a quiet, creeping horror. You understand now that the danger wasn't just the dung on your wound, it's in every sip of water you take, every mouthful of porridge you eat. The ludus is a perfectly designed incubator for waterborne diseases like cholera, dysentery, and typhoid. The constant stomach cramps and digestive issues the gladiators suffer, the ones you all blame on the body, are just as likely caused by the contaminated water you use to cook it. This stands in shocking contrast to the engineering marvels of Rome itself. The city was famous for its aqueducts, massive structures that brought millions of gallons of fresh, clean water from distant springs into the city's fountains and public baths. Roman engineers were masters of hydraulics and sanitation. They built incredible sewer systems like the Cloaca Maxima to drain waste away from the city center. They understood, on a practical level, that clean water was essential for public health. So why was the situation in the ludus so dire? This is a question historians often ponder. Was it a matter of cost? The l'honnêteté, ever the businessman, like he wouldn't want to spend a fortune building a private, sanitary aqueduct branch for his property? Was it a matter of status? Gladiators were, in fames, the lowest of the low. Perhaps providing them with the same clean water as a citizen was seen as an unnecessary luxury. Or was it simply a blind spot? A failure to apply public health principles to a private, enclosed institution? It was likely a combination of all three. The ludus existed in a strange bubble, physically close to the marvels of Roman engineering but a world away in terms of living standards. A strange but telling detail is the Roman obsession with the taste of water. Writers like Vitruvius and Pliny the Elder wrote extensively on how to judge the quality of a water source. They recommended observing the health of the local people who drank from it, checking if it stained bronze vessels, and noting its clarity and taste. They knew that water from different sources had different properties. It's a bitter irony that while a Roman nobleman might send slaves miles to fetch water from a particularly prized spring for his dinner party, you were drinking downstream from where your colleagues washed their feet. You begin to watch the other gladiators, especially the veterans. You notice the small ways they try to mitigate the risk. Some of them, when they drink, will let the water from the ladle run for a moment before filling their cup. A futile attempt to get fresher water from deeper down. Others prefer to drink the cheap, sour wine, the Nora, that is sometimes provided, perhaps understanding instinctively that it's safer than the water. It's a silent, individual struggle for survival, a collection of small superstitions and practical tricks learned through painful experience. Your newfound obsession with the water changes your daily routine. You try to drink as little as possible. You eye your bowl of barley mush with suspicion, knowing the contaminated water it was boiled in. You have survived fire and the threat of tetanus. But you now see that you are engaged in a longer, slower battle of attrition. Every day is a gamble. A wager against the invisible poisons you willingly consume to stay alive. The sword in the arena is a swift, final threat. The water is a slow, patient one, and it is a threat you must face with every single sip. Weeks turn into months. Your body, hardened by the relentless straining and marked by the scars of injury and healing, is no longer that of a frightened novice. You move with a new economy of motion, a grim confidence born of survival. You have found your rhythm within the brutal choreography of the ludus, and one evening, as the sun sets, you hear it. It's a distant sound, carried on the wind from the city beyond your stone walls, a sound you haven't heard since you were a free man. It's the sound of a massive crowd. A deep, guttural roar that rises and falls like the tide. It's a sound of pure, unadulterated excitement. Somewhere out there, an arena is full. Games are underway. You and the other gladiators stop what you are doing. The clatter of wooden swords, the grunts of exertion, the rhythmic thud of feet on dirt, it all fades into silence. Every man in the yard stands still, listening for the novices. The sound is a terrifying promise of what's to come. For the veterans, it's a familiar echo of their life's work. For you, it is the sound of a completely different universe. The cheers are for men just like you, men who live in filth, who eat tasteless mush, who are scraped for their sweat, who suffer from disease and crude medicine. Out there, in the sunlit world of the arena, those men are not slaves or property. They are heroes. They are gods for an afternoon. The crowd screams their names, bets on their success, and feels a vicarious thrill with every move they make. You stand in the dusty, squalid reality of the factory floor, listening to the adulation for the finished product. The contrast is so profound, so jarring, that it feels like a physical blow. The world outside these walls has no idea what happens here. They see the gleaming armor, the powerful physique, the defiant stare of the warrior in the sand. They don't see the lice, the infected wounds, the communal sponge, the endless, bloating meals of barley. They celebrate the myth, while you are living the filthy, painful reality that creates it. This disconnect between the public image and the private reality of a gladiator is one of the most compelling paradoxes of Roman society. Gladiators were the ultimate celebrities, yet they were also social outcasts. Their images were used to sell everything from lamps to wine, yet they themselves had few rights. This hero worship was a very real phenomenon. Children had their favorite gladiators, and graffiti from Pompey reveals fans scribbling messages like Saladus the Thracian, the sigh of the girls, the glory of the girls. He was a pop star, a heartthrob, a curious and rather sweet piece of evidence of this adoration is a child's cup found in Colchester, England. It's decorated with the names and images of famous gladiators. Much like a modern kid might have a lungbox with their favorite superhero on it. It shows that this fascination wasn't just confined to the city of Rome, it was a phenomenon that spread across the entire empire. That child in distant Britannia had no concept of the squalor you were enduring. To them, the names on their cup Valentinus, Secundus, Mario were legends. The debate among sociologists and historians is about the function of this hero worship. Why did the Romans idolize men they simultaneously despised? Some argue it was a safe way to channel society's fascination with violence. Others suggest it was a form of controlled transgression, where the gladiator, an outsider, was allowed to become a temporary hero, reinforcing the social order by showing that even the lowest could achieve a form of glory before being put back in their place. It was a way for the populace to engage with themes of life, death, courage, and fate in a controlled, theatrical setting. The roar from the arena swells again. A massive wave of sound. A big moment must have just happened. A skilled maneuver. A narrow escape. Or a final, decisive blow. You don't know who won or who lost. You only know that the crowd is satisfied. The show has been a success. The scarred veteran, CRXus, who has become a reluctant mentor to you, stands nearby, listening with his head cocked. He has a strange, distant look on his face. They don't cheer for you, he says, his voice a low rumble. They cheer for themselves. They cheer because they are sitting on the stone sheets and not standing on the sand. They cheer because your death reminds them that they are alive. His words are cynical, but they ring with a cold, hard truth. The cheers are not born of love or respect. They are born of spectacle, of fear, and of relief. You are a sacrifice to the mob's need for entertainment, a scapegoat for their anxieties about their own mortality. The sound begins to fade as the winds shift. The everyday noises of the ludus slowly creep back in a cough. The clink of a chain, the buzzing of flies. The magical, terrifying connection to the outside world is broken. You are back in your prison, your world of grime and survival. But the sound has changed something in you. It has given you a glimpse of the final act. All this suffering, all this filth, all this pain, it's all a prelude. It's the backstage preparation for the great, bloody theater of the arena. And soon, you know, it will be your turn to step onto that stage. The day finally comes. The Loniste reads out a list of names. Yours is among them. You have been selected for the Monera. The games. A strange mix of terror and, surprisingly, relief washes over you. The waiting is over. The endless, grinding routine of the ludus is about to be broken. Anything, even the prospect of death in the arena, feels preferable to another month of this slow, squalid existence. The night before the games is different from any other night you have spent in the ludus. The usual rules are relaxed. This is the night of the Sine Libera, the free dinner. It's a tradition, a public banquet held for the gladiators who are scheduled to fight the next day. It serves a dual purpose: to give the fighters one last good meal, and to act as a promotional event, allowing the public and the gamblers to get a close look at the merchandise before placing their bets. You are taken from the ludus under heavy guard and lead to a public hall. The transition from your dim, filthy world to the brightly lit, noisy world of the city is jarring. The air smells of perfumes, roasted meats, and wine instead of sweat and filth. The hall is packed with a morbidly curious crowd of citizens, men and women, rich and poor, all craning their necks to get a look at you. They point, they whisper, they assess your physique, your scars, the look in your eyes. It's an unnerving experience, being stared at like an exotic, dangerous animal in a cage. Then, the food is brought out. It is a feast beyond anything you could have imagined. Gone is the grey burly mush. In its place are platters piled high with roasted meats, fish glistening with oil and herbs, fresh bread, olives, cheeses, and fruits. Jugs of decent, drinkable wine are placed on the tables. It is a sensory overload. The aromas alone are intoxicating. You sit down, your fellow condemned men around you. Some of them, the ones who have given up all hope, gorge themselves with a desperate, frantic energy, stuffing their faces as if they can cheat death by filling their stomachs. Others, the veterans, eat methodically, unsparingly. They know that a heavy, greasy meal will make them sluggish and sick in the arena tomorrow. You find you have very little appetite. The rich food seems alien to your system, which has been conditioned by months of bland porridge. A few bites of roasted pork sit heavily in your stomach. The wine tastes sweet and strange on your tongue. Your mind is elsewhere, focused on the dawn. This feast feels like a cruel joke, a final, decadent mockery of the life you've been forced to live. Look, the city seems to be saying, at all the wonderful things you are about to die for. The scenery bearer is a well-documented historical event. Writers like Plutarch described the scene, noting the different ways men faced their impending doom. He wrote that while some feasted and engaged in boisterous behavior, others sat in quiet contemplation, saying farewell to their families who were sometimes permitted to attend. It was a moment of profound public and private drama. A fascinating, though debated, aspect of this Last Supper is its psychological intent. Was it a genuine act of generosity from the game's sponsor, the editor, or was it a calculated move to fatten the gladiators up one last time and put on a good show for the public? Some historians argue that the scenery bearer also served as a moment for the gladiators to assert their last piece of agency, choosing how they would face their final night with defiance, with despair, or with quiet dignity. It was their last chance to perform as men, rather than as fighters. You watch the crowd watching you. A wealthy man points you out to his companion, no doubt discussing your odds based on your build and the scar on your arm. A woman meets your gaze for a moment, her expression a mixture of pity and morbid excitement. You are no longer a person to them. You are an abstraction, a character in a story that will unfold tomorrow. They are here to witness the prologue. You push the food away and drink a little wine. You think not of the fight, but of your life before this. I have forgotten memory of a sunny field, the face of a family member, the taste of simple bread that wasn't a punishment. These are the things that fill your mind. The feast is just noise. The banquet eventually ends. You are chained together again and marched back through the dark streets to the ludus. The guards lock you in your cell for the last time. The smell of filth and despair feels, strangely, more honest and real than the perfumed air of the banquet hall. You lie down on your wooden slab. The unfamiliar richness of the food churning in your stomach. Sleep seems impossible. The roar of the crowd you heard from a distance is no longer far off echo. It's a promise. And tomorrow, it will be roaring for you. The morning arrives not with a gentle dawn, but with the harsh clanging of iron on iron. There is no time for the usual routine. Today is different. The air in the ludus is thick with a nervous, electric tension. You are given a small portion of the usual barley mash, just enough to quell the worst of your hunger without weighing you down, and then you are led to a small, separate chamber near the Laniste's office. Here, a different kind of preparation begins. An attendant, not the usual bath or street-gill man, but someone with an air of quasi-religious authority, stands before a large stone bowl. The bowl is filled with a greyish, gritty-looking liquid. He motions for you and the other chosen fighters to come forward, one by one. This is not a bath or a cleaning. This is a ritual. When it's your turn, you are handed a small clay cup filled with the liquid. Drink, the attendant commands. You hesitate, looking at the cloudy, unappetizing concoction. It smells faintly of ash and herbs. It will strengthen your bones, he says. It will make you harder to break. With little choice, you drink it down. It tastes like chalk and dirt, a gritty, unpleasant mouthful that you have to force yourself to swallow. This is a strange, and for a long time, mysterious part of the gladiators' regimen. You are drinking a potion of wood or bone ash mixed with water. This practice was a puzzle to historians for centuries, mentioned only in passing in a few obscure texts. But the key to understanding it came, once again, from the gladiator cemetery at Ephesus, when scientists analyzed the bones. They found not only the high strontium levels that pointed to a vegetarian diet, but also astonishingly high levels of calcium. The levels were far higher than could be explained by a diet of just barley and beans. The researchers were stumped until they cross-referenced their findings with ancient texts. Pliny the Elder mentions the use of ash from certain plants as a kind of medicinal tonic. The scientists hypothesized that gladiators were regularly consuming a calcium-rich supplement made from plant ash to help their bones recover from the constant stress of training and to make them stronger and more resilient to fractures. The gritty, ashy drink you just choked down was a form of ancient Roman sports supplement. It was their version of a calcium pill. It's a remarkable example of ancient folk medicine hitting upon a genuinely effective practice. While they didn't know about elemental calcium, they observed that consuming ash perhaps from burned hardwoods or bone had a positive effect on bone health. They discovered, through trial and error, a way to fortify the bodies of their fighters from the inside out. The exact recipe for this ash drink is, of course, lost to history and is a subject of academic speculation. What plants did they use? Was it mixed with other herbs? Was it a daily supplement, or just a pre-fight ritual? Some historians suggest it might have also had a ritualistic or psychological component. Consuming the essence of burned, hardened wood could have been seen as a way of magically imbuing the fighter with its properties of strength and resilience. It was likely a blend of practical medicine and symbolic magic, like so much of the ancient world. After you've all consumed the strange beverage, the Laniste enters the room. He looks at each of you, his gaze lingering for a moment. This is his final inspection. He is a general reviewing his troops before a decisive battle. He is also a businessman checking on his investments before they are put to the ultimate test. Today, you are not slaves, he says, his voice ringing with a surprising authority. You are not prisoners. Today, you are instruments of fate. You are the gods of the sand. What you do today will echo in this city for years. Show them no fear. Show them no weakness. Show them a beautiful death, or a magnificent victory. In either case, bring honor to this ludus, and to yourselves. It's a practice speech, one he has likely given dozens of times. Yet, hearing it now, in this moment, it has a powerful effect. It's a final piece of psychological preparation. He is giving you a narrative, a purpose beyond mere survival. He is framing your potential death as something noble, something meaningful. You stand there, the strange, ashy taste still in your mouth, the Laniste's words ringing in your ears. Your body has been prepared with fat armor and fortified with ash. Your mind has been prepared with a narrative of glory. You are as ready as you will ever be. The fear is still there, a cold knot in your stomach, but it is now overlaid with a sense of fatalistic resolve. The preparations are complete. The only thing left is the arena itself. The final preparations are a whirlwind of activity, a stark contrast to the slow, grinding pace of your normal life. You are taken to the armory, a room filled with the tools of your new trade. This is the first time you will handle real weapons. Racks of gleaming helmets, breastplates, greaves, and shields line the walls. The air smells of polished metal, leather, and oil. It's the smell of real, lethal violence. You are assigned your equipment based on the fighting style the Laniste has chosen for you. Perhaps you ought to be a THRX, with a small square shield and a curved sword. Or maybe a MUR Milo, with his fish-crested helmet and large, rectangular shield. Whatever your role, the armor is placed on you, piece by piece. The cold, heavy weight of the bronze and leather is both a comfort and a burden. It's a layer of protection, but it's also constricting, limiting your movement and your vision. The helmet, when it's placed over your head, is the most transformative piece. Your world narrows to what you can see through the small eye holes. The sounds of the room become muffled and distant, replaced by the sound of your own breathing, loud and dragged in the enclosed space. Once you are armored, the final, bizarre ritual takes place. The Strigil attendant appears again. But this is not the usual end-of-day scraping. This is a pre-show harvest. Your exposed skin, your arms, your legs, any part not covered by armor is meticulously oiled and then scraped one last time. This seems insane. Why would they do this now? The logic is purely commercial. The glow IOS of a gladiator about to enter the arena was considered the most potent, the most valuable. This was the sweat of a man on the brink of death, his body coursing with adrenaline and fear. This was the premium product. The grime collected today will be bottled separately, marketed as the first sweat or the arena sweat, and sold for an exorbitant price. It's the ultimate ghoulish souvenir. You stand there, a bizarre combination of warrior and livestock, being armored for battle while simultaneously being harvested for a beauty product. The attendant works quickly, his movements precise. He scrapes the oil and sweat from your skin, depositing the precious sludge into a special, perhaps more ornate, vial. This is the last indignity, the final commodification of your body before you are sent out to risk its complete destruction. This practice reveals the depth of the Roman obsession with the games and their participants. Nothing was wasted. Every aspect of the spectacle, from the blood on the sand to the sweat on the skin, had a value and a use. The gladiator's body was a site of multiple transactions, a spectacle for the crowd, a wager for the gambler, and a source material for the perfumer. There's a debate among historians about the emotional state of the gladiators during these final moments. Were they numb with terror, resigned to their fate, or filled with a kind of focused, adrenaline-fueled rage? The Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca, who was a frequent and oft uncritical spectator of the games, described what he saw as a kind of grim determination in the faces of the men entering the arena. He saw men who had accepted their fate and were prepared to meet it, for better or for worse. He wrote, "To me, it is not a show. It is sheer murder." Yet even he had to acknowledge the strange courage, or perhaps despair, that the gladiators displayed. A little-known tradition that sometimes occurred before the games was the taking of an oath, the sacramentum gladiatium. By speaking these words, a new gladiator would legally transfer ownership of his life to the lomiste. He would swear to be burned, to be bound, to be beaten, and to be killed by the sword Yuri, Vinciari, Thuberui, Agai, Therokunek Ari. It was the ultimate contract, surrendering all personal autonomy in exchange for the chance, however slim, to survive and perhaps win glory. Whether you spoke this oath formally or not, the principle is the same. Your life is no longer your own. The attendant finishes his scraping. He seals the vial and hands it to an assistant, who rushes it away to be processed. Your contribution to the cosmetics industry is complete. The heavy door to the armory groans open. It does not lead back into the ludus. It leads into a long, dark tunnel. You can hear a low, rumbling sound from the other end, the indistinct murmur of a massive crowd. You are given your weapon, a real sword this time. Its steel edge sharp and cold. The weight is familiar from your wooden practice sword, yet entirely different. This one has a deadly purpose. You are lined up with the other fighters in the tunnel. The air is cool and damp. Torches on the walls cast flickering, dancing shadows. No one speaks. There is only the sound of shuffling feet, the clink of armor, and the sound of your own heart pounding in your ears. The tunnel slopes gently upwards, towards a brilliant rectangle of light at the far end. That is the gate. That is the entrance to the arena, the entrance to your destiny. The line shuffles forward, an inexorable procession of armored bodies moving from darkness toward the light. The murmur of the crowd grows louder with every step, resolving from a formless rumble into individual shouts, laughter, and the steady, rhythmic stamping of thousands of feet. The air in the tunnel grows warmer, and the damp, earthy smell is replaced by the scent of hot sun on sand and the faint, sweet, metallic odor of old blood that never quite washes away. You reach the gate. It's a massive, barred portal, and through it, you get your first proper look at the arena. It is a vast, overwhelming bowl of light and noise. The sheer scale of it is breathtaking. Tier upon tier of spectators rise up to meet the sky, a wall of humanity stretching as far as you can see. The sun is a blinding glare reflecting off the pale, sun-bleached sand of the arena floor. The noise is a physical force, a wave that washes over you, so loud it feels like it's inside your skull. After months in the dim, enclosed, and relatively quiet squalor of the ludus, this sudden, violent explosion of sensory information is completely disorienting. You feel small, exposed, and utterly insignificant. The gate is raised with a loud, grating sound, This is it, the moment of transition. You step out of the tunnel and into the arena. The roar of the crowd intensifies tenfold. They are on their feet, cheering, waving, welcoming the parade of fighters. This is the pompa, the opening procession. You march, as your word reeled, in a formation around the edge of the vast oval, displaying your armor and your weapons. You keep your eyes forward, trying not to look at the blur of faces in the stands, trying to control the tremor in your hands. You pass the imperial box, where the emperor or the local magistrate who is sponsoring the games sits in state. You and the other gladiators raise your weapons in a salute. The famous phrase, Ave, Imperator, Moritariatis alut and hail, Emperor, those who are about to die salute you, is what many believe you would say here. However, the historical accuracy of this famous salute is a major point of contention. It is only recorded once, by the historian Suetonius, during a mock naval battle staged by the Emperor Claudius using condemned criminals, not professional gladiators. It's highly unlikely that it was a standard greeting at every gladiatorial contest. Most historians believe professional gladiators, who had a decent chance of survival, would not have used such a fatalistic and subservient phrase. It's a classic case of a dramatic line from a single historical event becoming, through movies and popular culture, an imagined universal truth. The reality of your salute was likely much simpler, a straightforward acknowledgement of the game's sponsor. As you complete the circuit, you can see the arena floor is not a pristine, flat surface. It's scarred and patched from previous contests. Dark stains mark the spots where men and animals have bled and died. The sound, you realize, is not just for show. It's there to absorb the blood, to provide traction, and to make the grim cleanup between events easier. A little-known feature of many arenas, like the Colosseum, was the complex world hidden beneath the sand, the Hypergeum. This was a labyrinth of tunnels, elevators, and trapdoors that allowed for dramatic entrances of animals and gladiators, seemingly from nowhere. As you walk across the sand, you are walking on a stage, and a whole world of stagecraft is hidden just a few feet beneath your feet. The parade ends. You are directed to your starting position. Your opponent is led to his. On the opposite side of the small section of the arena marked for your fight, you finally see him clearly. He is not a monster. He is a man, just like you. His eyes, visible through his helmet, hold the same mixture of fear and adrenaline as your own. He, too, was scraped for his sweat this morning. He, too, choked down the ash-laced water. He, too, is a product of the same brutal system. But here, on the sand, he is not your brother in suffering. He is the only thing standing between you and surviving the day. A trumpet blast cuts through the din of the crowd. Silence falls. A sudden, shocking absence of noise. Every eye in the tens of thousands is fixed on you and him. In this moment, there is no past. There is no ludus, no filth, no barley mush. There is only the sun, the sand, the man in front of you, and the weight of the sword in your hand. The life of squalor and indignity has led you to this single, terrifying, and strangely pure moment. You have been brought from the darkness into the blinding light, and now you must fight to stay in it. The fight is a blur of instinct and brutal repetition. Every drill, every exhausting hour in the training yard, every blow from a wooden sword now comes into sharp, lethal focus. Lunge, parry, retreat. The clumsy, heavy movements you practiced with the wooden rudies are now swift and efficient with the light, balanced steel of a real gladius. Your body moves almost without conscious thought, a machine built for this single purpose. The sound is overwhelming. The roar of the crowd is a constant, physical presence, rising in pitch with every near miss. Groaning in disappointment at a defensive maneuver, you can hear the clash of your sword against your opponent's shield. The grunt of his exertion, your own ragged breathing amplified inside your helmet. The fat armor, your barley-fed protection, proves its worth. A glancing blow from his sword that should have opened a debilitating wound on your side instead slices through the fatty tissue, creating a dramatic, bloody smear that thrills the crowd but leaves the muscle beneath untouched. The Loniste was right. It bleeds, but it doesn't stop you. Time loses all meaning. The fight could be minutes or an hour. Your world is reduced to the man in front of you, the sand beneath your feet, and the burning in your lungs. Finally, you see an opening. You make a mistake. The same kind of overextended lunge you made months ago. You don't hesitate. You pivot, and with all your strength, you drive your shield into his, knocking him off balance. He stumbles backward, and for a single, critical moment, his guard is down. You thrust. The impact is sickeningly soft. The point of your sword finds the gap between his breastplate and the top of his greaves, plunging deep into his thigh. He cries out. The sharp, choked sound then collapses onto the sand. The crowd erupts in a single, deafening roar. He drops his sword and clutches his leg, blood pouring between his fingers, staining the pale under dark, wet crimson. The fight is over. The referee, the Silmarudis, rushes in and places his staff between you, officially ending the combat. Your opponent, defeated and wounded, looks not at you, but towards the box of the editor, the sponsor of the games. He raises his left hand, the index finger extended. This is the ad digitum, the plea for mercy. He is putting his life in the hands of the crowd. The moment of decision arrives. The editor turns to the spectators, letting them decide the man's fate. This is the ultimate form of audience participation. A sea of hands and cloths appears. Some wave their cloths or give the thumbs up sign Polus Verser, though its exact form is heavily debated by historians to signify mercy. They believe he fought bravely and deserves to live. Others, hungry for a definitive end, give the signal for death. The historical debate over the thumbs up, thumbs down gesture is one of the most famous in Roman history. The phrase Polus Verser literally means with a turned thumb, but it's unclear if turned meant up, down, or pressed against the fist. Some scholars argue that a closed fist with the thumb inside symbolized a sheathed sword mercy, while a thumb pointed up, mimicking a drawn sword, symbolized death. The modern thumbs down for death is largely a creation of 19th century paintings and later Hollywood. You stand there, chest heaving, sword still in hand, watching the bizarre, silent vote. The fate of the man bleeding on the sand is being decided by the whims of thousands of strangers. Finally, the editor makes his decision, reading the will of the crowd. He gives the signal, mercy. The man on the ground visibly sags with relief. Medics rush in to carry him off to the sunnier room, the section of the infirmary reserved for wounded gladiators. He will live to fight another day. And you are the victor. The crowd roars your name, a name you barely recognize as your own anymore. You have survived. Thousands of years from now, archaeologists will excavate this place. They will unearth the bones of men like you and your opponent. They will analyze the strontium and calcium levels, piecing together the story of your strange diet. They will find the healed perifractures on your forearms and the unhealed wounds on others, physical evidence of your violent lives. Your bones will become the final, silent testament to the life of a horde arise, a barley man. They will tell the story not of a hero in gleaming armor, but of a survivor who endured filth, disease, and a diet of mush, all for a chance to live one more day. As you raise your sword to the cheering crowd, the taste of ash and barley still faint in your mouth. You know that your bones will one day tell the truth that the cheering crowd never knew. And so, the dust settles on the arenas, and your story, for today, is one of survival. You are led from the arena, back through the dark tunnel, away from the roaring crowd. You are no longer a god of the sand, but once again a piece of property, a wounded and exhausted asset to be patched up and prepared for the next time. The cycle of filth and glory will continue. But for now, let that world of sweat and begin to fade. The roar of the crowd softens, becoming a distant, Gentle hum, like the sound of a far-off sea. The sharp edges of the day blur and dissolve. The pain in your muscles eases, and the heavy weight of the armor lifts from your shoulders. Your mind, which has been stretched taut with fear and adrenaline, finally begins to uncoil. Let the darkness of the tunnel become a soft, welcoming blanket. Let the story drift away, leaving behind only echoes. The harsh realities of the ludus, the stench of the latrine, the sting of the strigil, the taste of barley. Let them all melt into the quiet of your room. You are no longer in that time, no longer in that place. You are safe, and you are comfortable. The journey is over. All that remains is the gentle descent into a deep and peaceful rest. Let your breathing slow, and your thoughts become as light as dust motes dancing in a moonbeam. The night is here to claim you, to offer its quiet comfort and its promise of renewal. There are no more fights to be fought, no more hardships to endure. There is only this moment, this peace, this gentle slide into the world of dreams. The end of the article. Good night.